Hi, good evening. Welcome to Barmy Army podcast number 51. We're nearly having a birthday party. This evening I'm joined by Andy. Andy, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. And Zoe, good for you to join us. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah. Good. It's strange times, but this week feels as if we might just be starting to move towards the light a little bit. Tonight we're going to reflect on the game against Villa from Sunday. Before we do, Andy, your name's been up in lights this week, certainly in terms of the Barmy Army, because you've had a couple of articles in print in a United fanzine, typically one that's aimed at the men's fans of the men's team, but one of your articles was about the women's team. For anybody that might not have seen the tweet, it's in Red News, my fingers obscuring it there. And Andy, a lot of people, good evening, Mark, Torren, John. A lot of people might not know the importance of fanzines within football culture. As a child, I shouldn't say as a child, because I probably wasn't acceptable. I remember my brother coming home with copies of Red Issue. So it's something that I've been aware of. But for somebody who has absolutely zero idea, good afternoon as it is for you, Karen, what would you say about the importance of fanzines?
I think from my experience going to Old Trafford, it was always there. The familiar sounds of match day. One of the key ones was when you're walking along, you hear that new Red Issue out today. New Red Issue, only £1. It's not only £1 anymore, but that they were the shouts that you'd always listen out for a new one out and go up and say hello and have a chat. And now we've got Twitter, we see a lot of fan opinion. It's not affiliated to the club, but on Twitter you have to sift through a lot of rubbish to get the good stuff. With a fanzine, with a fanzine that you've read before and you trust and you know the people involved, and they're not doing it for profit. They're doing it for the love of getting stuff out there of the community with other fans, and it's a big thing to have it in your hand and read it and know that is real fans' opinions, fans who are connected to the fanzine and that community, who want to write down their thoughts and feelings about things, and the jokes. There's a lot of humour involved in them as well. Yeah, it's a great thing to be involved in and to be a consumer of, because you're supporting fans who want to give something, want to put something out there, and it's a good community to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right in terms of the jokes. I know there's still things that my brother and we still sort of recite at each other. Mark says here, good evening, Ian, by the way. Fanzines are such an important tool for fans. One of the things that's always amused me, Andy, I'm sure you've seen it countless times, when you'd be walking towards Old Trafford, towards the stadium, and you'd see people that clearly were there for the very first and perhaps the only time, and they would be picking up a fanzine thinking it was the match day programme, and they are complete chalk and cheese. But for anybody that's interested, I know we tweeted about it. I should do it that side. We tweeted about it. Better view, actually. You don't have to see my face. We tweeted it out during the week. You can buy the physical copy. I know Torren, I'll give you a shout out for this. Torren bought the PDF because obviously not within the UK. And yeah, Mark's saying it here. Used to love reading Red Issue, especially Bertie McGoo, definitely. There are a few United fanzines. We are, Andy, hoping maybe to put something else in the future, maybe just about your own recollection of the men's team. Maybe we'll be able to find something else with the women's team in future.
Yeah, Barney, who's the editor, he's a great lad. He's very welcoming to all offerings, and you see people asking on Twitter, is there anything about the women in this? And the only way something about the women can be put in it is if somebody writes something and sends it to him.
Definitely. And he's really receptive. I know Mark.
He's very supportive.
Yeah. So yeah, any Reds who are interested, get on it, and just support Barney as well. Especially in these times, just try and support other Reds. So that's fanzines. Very, very brief touch on fanzines and the importance of them. And it may be one of those elements that if we can get more in sort of the main United fanzines, that's just another way we're going to cross over some of the men's fans into the women's team. And I think fans of both the men's and This is seamless. This is a seamless segue. Fans of both the men's and women's teams had a very enjoyable Sunday. Zoe, not just a derby win, but the women getting back on track slightly with a really important, really crucial, considering everything that had gone on in the 2 matches beforehand, a win against Aston Villa. Your thoughts on the match, the performance, the result, any aspect of it?
It was a great performance. I know everyone said that on paper we should have comfortably won that game. But like you said, we'd had a couple of shaky performances and not got those results. And I was nervous going into the match because I wondered, how the break had affected them as well. Had it strengthened us or had it weakened us? Because we've had that debate before about international breaks and how it can go either way, really. But it was a really convincing win. I thought the girls played excellently, and of course, it was obvious to see that we're quite a weakened side at the moment with injuries. The girls, the line was, I don't doubt any of them for a second. It's a brilliant squad that we've got. But we did have some of our key players out, the likes of Tobin Heath, of course, and Leah Galton. I was worried because of those injuries, but the girls, proved me wrong and proved that there was nothing to worry about, that they had it in hand, and of course Casey had it in hand. So yeah, I was really pleased with the performance. Yeah,
and Mark says here, I think this is pretty much summing it up. Very professional performance. Very good. Oh, it's just scrolled up my screen. Sang, you joined us. Sang is a Chelsea women's and United men's supporter. So I'm going to be civil and I'm going to say congratulations on the women's result today. Andy, Zoe's touched on it there about injuries. And to an extent, it feels like we lose somebody new every game. And I suppose Kristen Press is the latest, but according to all reports, that was merely precautionary. That's Casey's way of saying, we assume you're playing against Arsenal. I need to keep you fit. Are the injuries kind of picking Casey's team at this stage?
I would definitely say so. And some of those decisions might be decisions that we like to see without being forced by injuries. Okay. It's good to see Sigsworth get some game time and get her running at defences and causing trouble. But you want your best players available. There's 5 big names. You've got Russo, Galton, Lauren James, and then obviously Press and Heath. That's an attack. That's a whole attack.
Yeah.
You won't question any of those players being involved from the beginning of any match. Be it Villa or be it Arsenal, Chelsea, City, they're all solid starters at the top of our game. So they're all, each one of them individually is a huge miss, but to miss all 5 of those at once, and particularly since Heath has been injured, Press has been improving. We've talked about not quite seeing the best of her, but she has been improving. So if it is just this game that she misses and she's starting against Arsenal, brilliant, because we want to see the best of her. She's shown signs of it. If she can come out with a bang against Arsenal, then that'll be a huge plus for this squad.
Yeah, I think certainly we need to see the best of her as well, as much as we are. Certainly in that Everton Arsenal game, Fiona said some people were actually very worried about that game in the watch along. I think particularly when we saw the team news, and I know it's scrolled up. Jake, good evening. Jake was saying that he's been looking forward to this one because as much as we talk about the players who weren't able to play, we did have a return from injury. And I know that certainly in the watch along, the talk of Lucy Staniforth, she only played an hour, but Zoe, we all seemed as a collective in that watch along to be quite impressed with certainly her delivery. Her set piece delivery, and just gave us a calmness. Were you impressed with her performance? Bearing in mind that was her, it's March now, and that was actually her full debut. It's taken until now, what with injuries, she had a suspension at the beginning of the season. Impressed, Soph, with what you saw on Sunday?
I was, yeah, because as you say, I mean, I didn't actually realise that that was her first start, and I've seen her, come on in games, and I've been slightly disappointed. I wanted to see more from her, and I want to see her impact games a little bit more than what she has done so far. And I just really thought that she really dominated that game on Sunday, and she really took control and stepped up, and all my doubts were eased, because I thought she was brilliant, and as you say, a delivery, set pieces, and of course that was a brilliant goal, teaming up with Jess Sigsworth. So I was very impressed.
I was going to ask Andy a question. Mark's beaten me to it. Mark says, I think she should start against Arsenal. My question was going to be, so Andy, would you start Lucy Stan against Arsenal?
Based on that match, then yeah, I certainly wouldn't be worried about that. I agree with Zoe that previously, if you didn't know anything about her before she came to United, you'd have watched her game so far and think, is this a good signing? What are we expecting from this? But the fact that this was a first start shows how little chance she's had to have an impact. So it's good to see her have a good performance. And there was the comment as well about, was it Toon said to her, give it to me and I'll volley it here and then that, this and that. And she's like, no, just put it in. And the goal came. That kind of confidence in, this is what we're doing, we're going for this, attack the box. And good deliveries are important. For how much time professional footballers spend training, it's surprising how few players can deliver a good ball in the men's and women's game. Definitely. So to find somebody that can do it consistently, brilliant. Yeah,
definitely. I think I'm almost not needed tonight, because some of the comments are actually coming out with my next questions. But before I come to my next question on that, the one person who has been telling us all along about Lucy Stan's quality, Jake, says she really drove the midfield forward, confident, made things happen. She was given a bit too much space, but she needs to stay fit. Fiona says, much as we've said here, she's given Casey to something to think about. Sam's asked the question, when we've said, would you start Lucy Stan? He said, over who? We'll come to that. But obviously then goes on to say, putting their neutral hat on for a moment, Arsenal is a different beast from Villa. Yeah, I know. Can only beat what's in front of you. John Fry says, definitely have to start against Arsenal. Lucy has to start, maybe in place of Katie. Okay, so that's one answer. Mark's come back and said much the same. Could be Zellum. John Neville's gone on to say, would Lucy and Hayley Ladd both play against Arsenal? Zoe, who's your midfield against Arsenal? I know we're a full week away, and God only knows what will happen with injuries and fitness and whatever else. Fiona's given you her midfield three. She's gone Hayley, Jackie, Lucy. What are your thoughts?
Jackie has to start. She's been consistent all season so far. I think she's brilliant. The only thing is obviously we would have liked to have seen her score more goals by now. But I think she has been really strong this season, and she's had a few good assists. She's linked up well, and she was key in that press against City when we came back from 2-0 down, and so I'd like to see Jackie start, definitely. As you say, I know that Villa is a different kettle of fish from Arsenal, but I think Lucy Staniforth has proven that she can do it, and that she can start, and I think that's given her confidence. Starting a weekend gave her confidence to go on and do what she did in the match, and I think we need to keep that momentum up with her. And I think I definitely have Jackie and Lucy on my team. I think in terms of Hayley Ladd, I mean, it's so hard to talk about all our girls, aren't they? Because they've all got quality and in different places as well. I know in the watch along a few weeks back when we lost, and I remember someone said, I can't remember who it was, but we took Hayley Ladd off, and people started getting worried that we always lose when Hayley Ladd goes off, and sure enough, they got some goals, and and it didn't end too well for us. So they're all bringing different qualities, but for me, definitely want to see Jackie, and I definitely want to see Lucy.
Yeah. It was Mr. Calmness personified, Anthony, who actually made the point when Hayley goes, we concede when Hayley's not on the pitch, and within seconds it happened, and he was very calm and reacted very, very matter of fact about it. But I'll give Anthony credit for that one. In response to Fiona's Hayley, Jackie, Lucy, Karen agrees, Mark agrees, John Fry says much the same. Sang says, let me get that comment, don't tempt fate with injuries. I don't need to. It's just happening, unfortunately. Good evening, Max. Andy, there you go. Should we play defensively for the counter, knowing that they need to win, whether a draw is sufficient for us? United have got a culture, and I'm talking about Fergie's day here, of never going for a draw, even if a draw was all we needed. Fergie's always made that clear. And look, I kind of grew up in that era, and that was the majority of a lot of people's United following, I guess. Dare we afford to play for a draw? Because I say no, even though we know that's good enough. I don't think we can, but Andy, what do we do?
I think it's I think the memories are clouded by fondness that we never played for a draw. I think we certainly did play for a draw at times, but we were never very good at it. I remember going to City away under Fergie and not having a shot on target and losing 1-0. And a draw would have basically put the title in our hands.
Yeah.
So I think we did play for a draw, but we'd never been good at it. So I don't want us to at all. I think certainly adapt the game to show that we don't need the win. You know, don't play. I think if this game was 2 months ago and we were top of the league with good form, the midfield conversation would be different. You'd maybe look at Ella Toon getting forward well. You'd maybe look at if Zellum is on form, you want her attacking. She showed on the weekend that she got a goal because she was attacking the box, which we haven't seen much of her this season doing that. Those kind of things you want to see, and you want that momentum to keep going. But with our form before the Villa game, and the Villa game was 3-0, you know, we're not clinical. We want to see that, but we don't at the minute. I would say that the midfield Fiona suggested that everybody agrees with would be the right one. Keep it solid. Even with the injuries, we've still got players that can hit on the break and get at them. Jackie can move the ball around in midfield. Play defensive, and hit them when they create space because they've got to push for it. So we're not playing for a draw, but we're playing to the strengths of the situation.
Yeah, much the same as John Fry says, we need to play to our strengths. Not Arsenal's. United don't sit back. We need to attack. We need to be sensible, but we can't park the bus. Karen says, play to win, just in case. You never know what might happen later on. 2 Karens in this evening. Play to win. We can't assume we will win all the other games. Absolutely. Likewise with Arsenal. And John Neville says, I don't think we have the mindset to play for a draw, really. I don't think it's been something we've had to even think about in the 3 years that we've been in existence. Well, 2 and a bit years, really. In all this conversation about midfielders, one name's not coming up. And some would say, Andy, you and I have done a podcast actually where we almost ignored that person again, or we didn't mention them as much. But somebody who's been quite influential for us in terms of getting important goals. And actually, if we're talking about Arsenal, let's not forget Ella Toon got the goal against Arsenal at our place, got the winner. Where does Tooney fit in? If we go with that midfield 3, is Tooney on the bench? Or does Tooney start? Zoe?
Oh, tricky one. I think she starts. You know what? It's funny because I always overlook her when we talk about midfielders because she is such an attacking player that sometimes I forget, and I think she's one of our strikers, really. Because you know she had a really promising start to the season, and I think she does deserve a place. There's little bits of a play that, you know, I don't like. Sometimes I feel she can be a bit overconfident sometimes or a bit selfish with the ball. And that's what would worry me against Arsenal, that she'd sort of want to go in there and be the hero. And possibly fluff it up, you know. So but she's got the quality and she's got the passion and desire to go out there and play for that win, like you say, and that's what I think we need. I don't want to see them sitting back and playing for a draw at all, because I don't think it'll work out, and I don't think that's the kind of person Casey Stoney is either, and I don't think she'll want that from her players. So yeah, I'd like to see Tooney involved at some point in the game, but whether she's, you know, we bring her on as a game changer, I'm not sure, but I think she deserves to start.
Okay, Jake agrees with you. Jake says, don't fix what isn't broken. She always pops up with a goal or an assist. Got to start, if you ask me. Fiona reckons she'll be on the right wing. John also says much the same. Sang, Tooney is a winger. Good evening to Aoife. If Tooney plays right, be better if Honor plays right. So Honor to cover her. Yeah, that's and it starts changing the defence and everything. But I suppose the question is, if Tooney's playing on the right, where's is Kirsty Hansen on the left? And this is where, for me, a lot of Casey's team selection comes down to who's fit, but also does she look at who she can bring on. We were all staggered first game of the season against Chelsea when Jackie was on the bench, and then it worked as a masterstroke, mainly also because Sam Kerr didn't put the game out of reach. Torren, good evening again. Need to look around for people to pass to, much the same as you've said, Zoe. In the Villa game, both Lucy and Jess went on a run. Tooney just didn't see them. That's been one of the criticisms at times in watch-alongs, that she can choose to go on her own rather than take the pass where it's a better option. And against Villa, that's possibly not as visible, I suppose, because Villa were poor. Let's be honest, Andy. Villa were poor on Sunday. They offered nothing. I think that's the easiest birthday that Mary Earps has ever had, because she was just gathering the ball every now and again. Did you get the sense that Villa had almost, because I said something to Mark when we watched the highlights on the Monday, I think, where I said I felt that Villa said, this is a game we're not going to get anything out of. We can get points in other games. Let's just write this game off and carry on. Did you get that sense with Villa?
Yeah.
Am I just being really harsh?
I think it felt that comfortable, and it's tough to say. Clearly, we were better than them. Were they poor and we were better? Were we good and they were slightly worse? You don't know where up on the scale it is when there's a game like that. If they had played better, we were capable of playing better anyway. It was that comfortable.
Yeah.
But I think for us, it's a case of take momentum from that game, regardless of who was good, who was poor, and what the difference was. The main thing we take from the game is momentum.
Yeah.
And match fitness for players like Lucy, who got the first start out of it.
Yeah. And Casey said before the game, we have 7 cup finals. We have 7 matches. We need to win every one of those matches. I'll come back, Zoe, I'll come to you in a moment. John Fry, Villa Park the bus, offered nothing in our half the whole game. Absolutely. Jake, Villa look like a team with nothing to play for. Half-hearted opponent. Arsenal will be the opposite and throw everything at us. We know what Arsenal need something from that game. That's clear, whereas Villa could almost afford to write it off potentially. Jake says he was worried about Iwabuchi before the game. She hardly got into the final third. No, I think her match was summed up, Jake, when she was dispossessed by Carrie Jones very late on in the game. I'm surprised that wasn't your highlight of the match. Yes, an important match for us. It gives us that momentum. And after 2 really, really disappointing results and performances, John Neville says, much the same as we're saying, expects a bit more from Villa. Yeah. That was the perfect game in a way to set us up for this. Would you say, Zoe? Because, and I've said this for weeks now, and I'm getting bored of saying it, but it feels like it's happening. This is the biggest game of our season. Mm-hmm. The Arsenal game will have massive implications for both teams. We needed to come into this game hopefully without losing anybody else to injury. I know Amy T went off and looked like she was having a little bit of treatment, but there's a suggestion that was more precautionary. We needed to get, I think, a clean sheet mattered. We needed to get some goals. And we needed players who haven't featured a lot to play. I'm thinking about people like Jess, people like Lucy Stam. Martha was back. In many ways, the perfect warm-up for Arsenal. I keep coming back to, and I don't know what your hesitation is or what your thoughts are. It's more tempting fate. I've been accused of tempting fate here. I don't know what I'm tempting fate on. The team as it is, have we got enough to get something from that game against Arsenal?
I would have said no, normally. But then I think, because I still think if Galton, Heath, Russo would have all stayed fit throughout the whole season, we really could have been, wrestling with Chelsea and going for the title. So to have those key players out, it makes me nervous, and I would normally say, no, we're going to struggle to get something at Arsenal. But then I also have to remember that last season, even though we lost to the top three, as it were at the time, we still put in a performance, and we only lost by like 1-0 at Arsenal, I think. And it's a similar team, only with improvements. Even with all our injuries, we've still got those core members that were involved in those performances last year that put everything on the line. And yeah, we still lost, but we were so close to not losing. And so I do think that we can get something out of, when I think of it, the bigger picture. When I think of the bigger picture, I think, yeah, I need to have more faith in these girls, because they're gonna try the hardest, and they've got the talent and the capabilities. And like you said, they've come off the back of that win. They've got a lot of confidence because, like you say, the likes of Lucy making a first start, and Martha started. People like that will have really given them a boost, and they'll be working harder than ever on the training ground to try and be in Casey's selection. And I think we do stand the chance of at least coming away with a draw, if not, taking the 3 points.
Okay. Well, John Fry says he can see us surprising Arsenal if we turn up for the game. That's also an issue. Sang says I'm tempting fate with the injuries. I can guarantee, Sang, the way our injuries have gone this season, I've not said a word, I've not done anything, and look what's happened. Maybe I need to talk like this to actually keep players fit. There's a logic in it. Marty, good afternoon as it is for you. Thank you for joining us. With regards to Russo and LJ, I think Casey indicated last week that Russo's a couple of weeks off. LJ, I don't think we know where she's up to. Andy, any word on LJ? Have I heard this, or have I missed hearing anything?
I have no idea. Not a clue.
Okay. Good, as long as I hadn't missed anything. Jake wants to know, since it's a big game, can we have a 94th minute winner this time? Nope, we can have a much earlier winner. Thank you very much. Marty's saying solid defence and a sound middle. Absolutely, if we can. Wouldn't mind a decent attack as well with that. I know I keep veering off this Villa game, but for me, Andy, it just felt as if it was 90 minutes to get through. We did what we needed to do. But in the same way, we still did it.
Yep. And
maybe I'm dismissing it because we're all focusing so much on the Arsenal game. But to take Casey's words about we have 7 cup finals, certainly this was before the Villa game, each game is as important as each other.
Of course it is.
And that Villa game, perhaps I'm wrong, shouldn't be dismissed.
We slip up on that game and this Arsenal game becomes even bigger. If we get beat by Arsenal as it is, then their game in hand becomes worth so much more. That brings us potentially level on points.
Yeah.
If we slip up before that, then we're giving them the incentive to beat us, and it's in their hands. Whereas now we know if we avoid defeat, we keep ourselves that 3 points clear of them, potentially 6, depending on the game in hand. Win, and we extend the lead. And I wouldn't say out of sight, but considering their form as well as ours, because they haven't been the usual convincing selves. We could really put the pressure on them to have to win every single game after that.
Yeah, it does feel quite momentous as potentially as a result. And you're right, and every match will count for both teams at this stage. Karen says, Jake, if we've got to take a 94th minute winner, absolutely. Any way we do it is fine. John Fry says he'd take that. Good evening, Natasha. Marty, need to take 3 points every time we're able, for sure. Yeah, any way we can get 3 points, we need to do that between now and the end of the season. Zoe, I'm not going to mention the thing that I keep tempting fate about. I'm going to talk about fitness levels and tiredness, because a lot of our team haven't played, and I'm going to word this carefully, haven't played a full Super League season for United, because obviously last season wasn't. I know there's the nucleus of the Championship team who would have played a full season in that year, but fitness-wise, this is uncharted territory for the team and also for Casey. And she's managing that, we hope. But that's a different challenge for some of these players. Is that something that might play on their minds? Because we've also got people going out for international breaks again. Managing fitness, does that come into it as well?
Yeah, I think it does. And one thing that I've thought about throughout this season, and this might be kind of going off on a tangent a little bit, but what worries me about a lot of these injuries is that the majority of them have come in training. And that, to me, raises some questions of, are they kind of training too hard? What goes on? Do they have that too much of a competitive streak during training and against each other? I'm not sure what, I know it happens, but it just seems to have happened too much this season. And I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe it is just that a lot of these players are not used to playing, a full season in the WSL, like you say. And I think we probably upped our intensity for this season as well, and in terms of training and what we want to achieve. And I think the pressure has sort of taken its toll on some of our players. And I just hope that I hope it's far from the mind, and I hope that, as long as they're feeling good in the moment, then that's what they focus on, and that'll get us through to the end. But we just got to hope that we don't get any more knocks. So yeah.
It's that footballing cliche, isn't it? One match at a time. And Sang says, all joking aside, must be something wrong for this many injuries to have taken place. And Zoe, you make the point that I think, with the exception of Leah's most recently, anyway, the rest of them were on the training pitch, it looks like. Sang's also said, you may take a 94th minute goal, your hearts may not take it. I don't think my grey hair would take it either. Jake's come up with a point, but we'll go to it now. Actually, I was going to have a think about it later, but let me. Okay, it was announced this week, initially by West Ham, and then by United, that Emily Ramsey's gone out on loan to. I think she's potentially gone as emergency goalkeeper cover, but Andy, as our genuinely accepted number 2, are you surprised Rambo's gone, or actually do you think this is something that we should have been looking to do regardless of any team needing emergency cover? I know she's been injured, but still, should we have been looking to do this anyway?
If your second choice keeper is 27, 28 and an established keeper happy to be that backup, you keep them all day long. But she's young. She's got to have her eye on being first choice someday. So she needs the experience.
Yeah. So
absolutely, if the opportunity is there to get her some real first team experience, especially, a team like West Ham that they've been involved in the top division regularly since they were formed. So, get her out there.
Yeah. Jake goes on. He says it was a bit awkward seeing her named in the West Ham squad before an official announcement at our end. Absolutely. Zoe, I'll come to you in a moment because I know you're a big fan of Mary. So we'll come back to this point. Just talking about the injuries. Karen asks, are the training injuries due to them not practicing on the same pitch every day? They seem to keep switching where they practice. They're largely at LSV. Recently, they've switched to the Cliff. I think a lot of it comes down to facilities and certainly frozen pitches. And if that's the case, no team will be training on the same pitches all the time unless they are the men's Premier League teams. I think certainly if you look at some of the women's teams, I would say we're training on better pitches than some of them. I don't know if there's a correlation between any of this, but I know that people are asking the question, what's changing? Maybe it is the intensity. Maybe it is they're being asked to step things up. Zoe, let's move back to the conversation. Jake says, do we see her playing much for West Ham, though? They're in a real relegation fight now and she's still inexperienced. There is the thought, if you're sending her out on loan, you're sending her out to play. Would you be disappointed if she doesn't get game time?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I mean, we only spoke about it last week on All for United, and we were saying that it was a real shame for her that her loan spell ended in the way it did last year because of COVID. And she's a good goalkeeper, but we've said about Mary's form and how she kind of needs somebody to be challenging her, really, to be pushing her. And I don't think Rambo's quite there yet, because of her inexperience. And so I really want to see her play for West Ham. I understand what Jake's saying, though, and it is a worry. I would have thought that it'd be better to send her maybe to a championship side to get that game time, like we tried to do last year, and we all know how that ended. But she needs that time, and I think when she does have 6 months under a belt of week in, week out game time, then we'll really see a difference in her performance. And I'll be getting a bit nervous for Mary.
And that was the point I was really thinking about here, in as much as we've seen with the men's team in particular. I'm thinking about Luke Shaw, and I'm thinking about how he's really come on leaps and bounds this season. People are suggesting it's because he's got somebody behind him. He's got Alex Tellez to push him and to really challenge him and make him think, I've got to put in a shift here. Rambo is, in terms of the personnel we've got, the most likely, certainly more than Fran Bentley, to push Mary. Zoe, you're a fan of Mary, never hidden that. Do you think Mary needs pushing? Do you think she needs Rambo to go out, have a good loan spell? Because she might, I'm not saying she is complacent, but she might just become a bit too relaxed in that position.
Yeah, definitely. I think she does. She needs someone to push her, like you say. And I think with Mary, I said this last week. I think, she's not had a full WSL season, like everybody else, and I think that's going to really help this season, having that behind her. But I think she also feels the nerves a bit as well. And she's one of our players that really thrives off the fans. And obviously we've not been there, and that's kind of obvious in a lot of ways, the way the interaction that she has with us after the games and stuff, and so not having us there, I know normally the fans sort of push on strikers score and stuff, but I think she's missing having the fans. I think also there's been a lot of games like we said about Villa. It was the easiest birthday that she's ever had because she didn't get tested, and that's the only thing that worries me going into Arsenal. Is she will get tested at Arsenal. She will have saves to make, and she's not had that game time that everybody else had at Villa of that that time on the ball, and our strikers were busy, and Mary just wasn't busy, and that's the only doubt in my mind about going into Arsenal. I don't doubt Mary at all. I'm a big fan of her. I think she has the quality to make the world-class saves, but I think there might be a little bit of nerves that get in the way at the weekend, and I just hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen her be tested by Villa. I would have liked them to have, had a few shots that she could have practiced on.
Yeah, definitely. Jake says it's a great opportunity to have a loan in the WSL, especially with it being a relatively small league. He fears she won't get to play many games. It's a huge chance to prove herself at this level. Torren asks, what if Mary gets injured? It's a big risk. But John Neville, saying exactly what I was about to come back with. If it's an emergency loan, I'm guessing that we would be able to recall Rambo immediately. That's how much that's my experience of emergency goalkeeper loans. You can recall if there's an injury within the club that's loaned out.
I'm not sure what the rules are around it. I would suggest, if it was applying my own logic to an emergency loan, I would suggest that emergency loans should be kept for the duration of the need. Otherwise, you could end up with a keeper going in for a couple of weeks and coming back, and then they need another emergency loan. So I would suggest that should be how an emergency loan works, but that's just my logic rather than believing how it actually works.
Yeah, Ian, if
United would make sure we can.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, actually, Ian. If you're still awake, because I know you got weird work hours, you tend to be the one that knows these things. So, Ref, tell me what happens with an emergency goalkeeper loan. Andy, you talked about a number 2 goalkeeper, and we've had a situation with the men's team where Sergio Romero, one of the best backup goalkeepers, and could be trusted to come in at cup games. We knew we were going to get a steady goalkeeper. The women don't have that, would you say, at this point?
No, they've got, with Rambo and Bentley, they've got 2 young keepers.
Yeah, both
of you you'd like to go and get some experience, but you need a solid second choice keeper to cover for them going getting the experience. So how do you approach it? Hopefully Rambo will get some experience from this. Where does that leave Bentley anyway? If going forward we've got Earps with Rambo as second choice, or Rambo becoming first choice, does Bentley become second choice with no experience? That's the trouble with relying on youth too much. Yeah.
And because it's a specialist position, you can't just stack them up or go short on your numbers. And I know Rambo's on a long-term deal. It makes me wonder, actually, into next season, what the plans are for the goalkeepers and whether this is just a sign, whether it's something as simple as Casey saying, go, you need to go and play, which we can all understand, but whether there's some thought in why, what's behind that. Sang asks the question, who's Merrier second against Arsenal? The backup keeper at the moment will be Fran Bentley. Behind her will be Sophie Hilliard, if I get the name correct. I'm sure Jake can put me right on that one. It's not a goalkeeping lineup that would have you feeling overly confident, would you say, if anything did happen, God forbid, to Mary, Zoe?
Yeah, I think it's like you say, it's not an ideal situation. It's but then it's hard with goalkeepers, because if you've got quality goalkeeper sitting in second place, really, they're forever going to be itching to get on that pitch, and they're forever going to be looking for opportunities to leave if they're not getting the opportunities. So the goalkeeping position has always been something that sort of intrigued me, really, to watch at clubs, both in men's and women's. But as you say, if anything was to happen to Mary, I'd be very scared. But I think we just got to have faith in the youth system, and hope that Casey and the goalkeeping coaches have been working with them, and they've learned off the likes of Mary, and they'll come in and want to prove something if anything happens.
Yeah. Aoife's asked the question, any news about Vilderbo Arisa signing, or should we forget? My apologies, Torrent and Ellen, I probably mangled the name. The last thing we all heard was that the deal was still being worked on. And Andy, you know full well that when United do a deal, they don't do it quickly.
That means she's not coming.
Um,
then again, we do have the announcement today.
yes.
And he did comment on that about working with Casey. It wasn't just about the men's. He mentioned working with Casey as well as Ollie.
Absolutely.
Developing the women's team as much as the men's. So that's promising.
Yeah.
Promising.
For anybody who missed this news, John Fry's just saying here that in the summer he thinks we need to sign an experienced keeper to really push Mary so that we can loan. Oh, here we go. We got the answer. Goalkeepers can be recalled at. Thank you, Ian. Goalkeepers can be recalled at any time, subject to the required notice period agreed by the clubs, unless the team recalling is down to one. Basically, we can recall her, if I read that right. Ian, making us all smarter again, but not in food choices. 24 hours written notice required. She then cannot go back out on loan to the same club. Okay, you are very welcome. And with the conversation you started, the point you made there about John Murtagh. So out of the blue today, United have announced a football director, and is it a technical director? And a gentleman by the name of John Murtagh has been announced as, if I get this right, is he the football director? Yeah, I think he's the football director. Yeah, and Darren Fletcher's the technical director, if I get that right. Anyway, Fiona says here, seen him at LSV before, often sits behind the BA, the Barmy Army. John has, in his quotes today, he very much seemed to allude to this sense of one club ethos, and he talked about he talked about how well the men's, women's, and academy teams were doing. And he then talked about how he's worked with Casey, Ollie, Casey, and the staff. So every opportunity he got, he talked about the women's team, and he included the women's team. He has been involved with the women's team, and he's been involved, I think, with some of the signings. But he has been around the women's team. He does attend pretty much every match at LSV, does some away games as well. And if Nat was here now, she'd be telling you that she and John are like that. She has conversations with him. He has at times, certainly in the early days of us trying to have dialogue with the club, he was involved on some level. Obviously now he's that much further up, so I don't think we'll be speaking to him. He's also handed out, as some people would love you to know, he's handed out team sheets to some of our members. So don't know where you're going to get those from now on. I think he'll be definitely off to one side with the very, very big wigs. But it is big news for a club that has talked about a director of football for a long, long time and never appointed one. Now we have this, it's not a director of football, it's a football director. And it's somebody who has experience of the women's team and is talking about the women's team. So hopefully this helps us to grow. This helps us to be cemented within Manchester United, and going forwards, all of those things that we hoped for do actually happen. Ian's getting a lot of love for that. Thanks, Ian. Nice one, Ian. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, there you go, Ian. Just your food choices are a bit questionable. Let's talk about that, actually, Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of having, not Ian's food choices, no one wants to talk about that. The importance of having, somebody who's familiar with the women's team having such a crucial role, not just within the women's team, but within the club as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think what do we need now for the women's team going forwards?
Well, I think a lot of us, the women's team is early on in its stages, and a lot of us have only sort of started, well, for me anyway, a lot of us have only started following the women's football because our club got a women's team. And so I think, you know, for all of us, it's important. We're Manchester United fans first and foremost. Whether that's men, women, academy. You know, I know a lot of you guys go and watch the academy as well, and I like the fact that I don't know how it works in other clubs because I'm not overly interested, but you know, I've seen lots of social media, you know, with our men's and women's team doing things together, doing a lot of charity work together, which I think is the most important aspect of the club, to be honest with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of that unity between the men's and women's team. And I think, you know, that's sort of what draws certain players to the women's team as well, because of that, the history behind the badge, not the history behind the women's team, because we don't really have any. But not just that, of course, you know, Casey Stoney is a bit legendary. So, you know, obviously she draws in top players because they want to be coached by people like Casey Stoney. But I do think, you know, our history as a club is so important to us all, and it is great to be moving forward, like united, basically. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more of the same of that, really.
Okay. Sang says here, what you're saying is why they support Chelsea ladies. As a United fan, 2010, when they started taking women's football seriously, United didn't have a team. And actually, the point you made about we're United fans and you weren't necessarily interested in women's football, I will always hold my hands up to that. I will never claim to be the biggest women's football fan. I'm a United fan. And for me, I couldn't get into women's football until we had a team. And I know that I'm far from alone with that. I'm not going to claim to be something I'm not. And I guess that kind of brings us back to the conversation we started with a little bit, Andy, that we as men's fans are now almost trying to merge the two. We talked about fanzines, but that's something, and Fiona says here, trying to normalise the women's team. This feels like an important step. We've heard that all red, all equal thing, but actually this feels like a really crucial step for us to have somebody who is almost ingrained in the women's team, has been there from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen it before. Like we say, we've seen the men and the women attending charity events and things like that. And marketing, as much as marketing and advertising isn't what we want to see our players doing, if they have to do it, at least both sets of players are involved. I think, unfortunately, COVID has meant that with the bubbles, we've probably seen a lot less of it. But I fully expect it to pick up again, especially now with John Murter involved when they're able to do so again. And maybe also that somebody mentioned about the injuries possibly being moved around from this pitch to that pitch and not having consistency. Maybe that's something that can be developed as well. You know, a real home for the women's team.
And as one of the old school fans, I know that the talk about the cliff for the women has always been an issue, and maybe that's they've been there certainly over the last week or two. Maybe that's coming to fruition. Maybe things have been held up through COVID. I don't know. Marty would like to know, can John sort out the website, because it's really weighted towards the men's team. I think this is an interesting one that until recently, I'm told it's changed, but if you selected which team, it said men's, or it would have something like first, and then under 23s, under 18s, and then women. As if Manchester United first team was the men, not the first men's team and the first women's team. Hopefully that shifts. Jake says, could be a massive moment for growing the following of our women's team. Question is, when are other clubs going to do the same? We already have the best fans in the league by a mile. Oh, Jake. Marty says, are the training facilities of the same quality? I don't think anybody can answer this question because I don't think anybody genuinely knows what the facilities are like. Certainly that we'll share. But I would like to think that Casey's not going to accept anything second rate. Fiona says now it just says women and men. It used to be first team and women. So there is progress. There is definite progress, even on the website, that we acknowledge the women on an equal footing. And I always think when a team is successful, that drives interest. And John's going to be aware of that. He's been with this team from day one. He was very influential, I believe, in terms of some of the signings. So he knows this team, this collective. He knows it inside out, and he's seen what the fans are doing for this club. So, yeah, fingers crossed that takes us a bit further. Zoe, I'm going to ask you very quickly. I know we've still got another week and a bit to talk about the Arsenal game, and no doubt it'll get revisited next week. As things stand, give me your starting 11. Sticking you on the spot there.
You are. Of course, Mary in goal. Okay. I'll start with the easy one.
Yeah.
I would like to see. I think if Amy's fit, Millie and Amy. Although, I mean, I can't off the top of my head. I know she's a defender, but I can't quite picture where she starts. But our new signing from Chelsea, Forest. I'm going to embarrass myself now. Forest Daughter, is she called?
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of her. And midfield, well, we've had this discussion. Definitely Jackie. I should also say I'd like to see Honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't ask her to say her second name because FA player keeps calling her Badger, and I'm not.
I'm reliably informed by my Spanish-speaking friend it's Badia. It's just, Badia. I think if you mangle it together, it does sound a bit like Badger. But if you just separate ever so slightly, yeah.
Yeah, FA player was on it the other day with Badger and Groon and as well. Okay. So yeah, Jackie in midfield. I'll just stick with first names. We've talked about Tooney. I think she deserves a place. And of course, Press, if she's fit. Fingers crossed.
So, you playing Lucy Stan?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. We've got Lucy, Hayley, and Jackie. You mentioned in midfield. Tooney, Kristen. You put on the left wing. I think Kirsty Hansen tends to be the only option we've got there these days, isn't
it? Yeah, sounds good.
Andy, any changes to that?
Just the front three. I think what I'd like to see is, if Press is available, I think I'd maybe like to see Press and Hansen on the wings with Sigsworth up front, and then look at Toon for bringing on later on in the game when, soak up the pressure, tire them out while they're chasing. I think Hansen's solid and reliable, but can attack as well. Press will hopefully have that spark. She's the only thing she's struggled with in more recent games is the finishing.
Yeah.
So I'll get her energy out there on the wing, supporting Sigsworth, who'll run them ragged at the back. And then last 30 minutes, maybe for the second half, get somebody like Toon on to have a go.
I like the sound of that. John Fry's not giving me his team prediction, but he is giving us a score prediction. We'd all take that one. Karen agrees with you front three. Sang saying Press Sigsworth Tooney. Yeah, Karen also wants to see Jess up front. I think we imagine that the physical presence might be an important element of the game, and I think that we talked about Kristen Press. She's come off a really good international break, and I think we were all really looking forward to seeing what she could do against Villa. Certainly with that confidence high, the way she's been playing. So hopefully she can keep that rolling going into the Arsenal game. That'll be a conversation. It's going to happen one day. Yes, John Fry, it's going to happen. Where's it? Sorry, my computer didn't work there. Whoa, slow. It's going to happen one day. It will. I hope. Marty's saying we'll take points. settle for that right now. Bringing us up to an hour. Andy, again, just want to say very quickly, in case anybody missed the beginning, if anybody wants, our very own Andy Slater has got 2 articles in this current issue of Red News, which you can buy. We tweeted it out during the week, I think on Monday. You can buy the actual physical copy, or you can get a PDF copy. It's a really interesting read. It's a really good read. It's United fans. Some of you might get it and think, what on earth is this? This is football culture in this country. Andy.
Actually, Deb, there is an article in there that relates to what we've talked about in the last 5 minutes or so, about fan involvement and bringing new fans into the game. The article is about the battle for the purples. So within Manchester, in the 90s, it was all about United. City started investing, and a lot of youngsters grew up turning blue. And it's about where do the next generation of fans come from. And the article itself in Red News was mainly targeted at the men's side, but that's absolutely part of what we talked about with John Murter trying to develop in the women's game as well. Yeah. Where do the new fans come from? Get absolutely. Out there and attract them to the game.
Absolutely, and that's something that hopefully we'll all be a part of, and we'll just see that the group's growing and the fan numbers growing, and members growing as well. Andy, Zoe, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Thank you to everybody who's been watching, everybody who's commented. Really appreciate it. Mark's back next week. I don't know who with. But he'll be here for episode 52, which, as I'm reminded, isn't the birthday, because that's the week after, because we start on week 1, and actually anyway, so Mark's going to be here for week 52, for episode 52. Torrin's bought, there you go, you see, your article was so good, Andy, it's made Torrin buy a whole subscription.
You'll have to tweet Barmy and ask him to get us in every game, yes. every issue.
All the time. Torrin, get on it. Tell them that Norway wants more. Thank you very much for joining us. Zoe, take care. Look after yourself. We'll see you again soon. Andy, thank you very much. And cheers for the articles. And everybody else, take care. I'll see you in a fortnight. Ta-ra.